All right, a great Thursday today, great podcast. We have, as always, myself, Coach Schumann, and we have my co-host, as always, Coach D, to my left today. We're going to talk quite extensively about a little bit about recruiting, some NIL stuff, and some representation stuff with a fantastic guest today. Our guest, Kevin Malast, who played at Manchester Township High School in down the shore, his high school ball. Then he went and played at Rutgers, was a standout there, fantastic player there, played in the NFL. I think 3 or 4 teams played with the NFL in the NFL with, and now is with Legend Agency, and he's really helping players with their process. So we're really excited to talk to him. He has the experience as a player at a very, very high, at the highest level, and is now transitioning to helping players really kind of continue on in their career. So it's great to talk to him, and we're going to cover a lot of great topics today. So Kevin, welcome to the show.
Good to see you guys, man. Excited to be here.
Really, I touched briefly on it, but I'd like you to kind of go into depth. How you started playing, your background from that standpoint, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, like you said, I started playing football at Manchester High School. I was a 3-sport athlete there. I wrestled and played baseball as well. I had 2 older brothers that played college football too. My oldest brother played linebacker at New Hampshire, and my middle brother played running back at VMI, Virginia Military Institute. And my father actually played football at Villanova. So football is all in the family. Decided to stay close to home and go to Rutgers University, just given it was only an hour from my house. I figured I'd do my parents a favor there, so it's easy for them to visit me and go to games and have all these memories together. So going to Rutgers at that time, my freshman year was 2005. That was Coach Shiano's first bowl game as a head coach at Rutgers. We played Arizona State in a great bowl game there at the Insight Bowl. Lost in a shootout. And then the following 3 years, we won 3 consecutive bowl games. So just a really good time to be at Rutgers, a lot of really good memories on and off the field, and built a lot of really special relationships along the way too, which would come back later on in my career. But from there, I played 4 years in the NFL. I played 2 years with the Bears, 2 years with the Titans, with a stint with the Jacksonville Jaguars between those as well. In my career, I'm very, blessed to have that career, what I did. And I was the type of guy that I just continue to outwork people along the way. I didn't have a lot of natural talent when it comes to that level. So I just continue to work and put my best foot forward to make sure I give myself the best opportunity. And luckily, my childhood growing up in my family and then Rutgers, that all prepared me to do that and to have a 4-year career. And learned a lot in that career, So, I have a special relationship with my agent. His name is Pat Capra, and me and him, he really taught me a lot along the way, about the business. And I've experienced a lot as a player. I've been active. I've been on practice squad. I had to go on IR. I had to get a second opinion for that IR injury. I went through a lockout in 2011. So even just in that 4-year span, I just experienced a lot from the business standpoint. And then even more so, I learned a lot just what the agent-player relationship should look like and what it should represent, just given, mine and past relationship. And it gave me that very unique perspective of the business on and off the field and what that relationship should represent. And even more so, my transition out. A lot of guys kind of lose touch with their agents as soon as they stop making them money. And it's no more business anymore, but me and Pat, if anything, got closer along the way. So again, just blessed to have that perspective of what the agency representation world should look like. And now I get to pay that forward in my current role as the vice president of talent at Legend Agency. And I basically manage and oversee a lot of our talent relationships and try to create wins across the board.
Is that Pat's agency that
Yeah. So the three partners in it are Pat, a guy named Ari Nissim, who has this incredible background in representation and front office work as well during his time with the Jets. And then I was made partner in that as well.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome.
Congrats, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I know Pat from when I was an agent for 6 years. So yeah, that's wild. That's
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Small world. And as you know, like it is a small world, right? And how
Yep,
you
yep.
treat people and the relationships along the way, and no matter where you're at in your career. And I'm lucky I had that perspective as a player and how I treated people during my time at Rutgers. And those relationships kind of come full circle in a certain way. And in this business, it's so tight. You just want to make sure you're just treating people right and you have the proper character to move forward in your career.
And Pat's focus used to be, obviously, I've been out of it for I think 4 years now, 4 or 5 years, but he used to have a big focus on Rutgers. Obviously, is that still a big focus for you guys, Rutgers
Yeah, for
players?
sure. I would say it's just a natural fit,
Right.
given the
Yeah.
location where we are. All three of us are Jersey based. I still live at the Jersey Shore. I'm in Toms River.
Okay.
Always in
Yep.
Morristown, Pat's in Verona. So
Okay.
like we kind of have Rutgers circled there,
Right.
just given where we live, and obviously through my career and playing there and all the relationships. I mean, the coaches there, I played with a lot of them. A lot of them were former teammates of mine. Or
Yep.
a lot of them were my coaches when I went through there. I mean, Joe
Right.
Susie's still there. Joe Susie
Right.
recruited me as a player to go there. So just due to special relationships, and a lot of times in this business, it comes down to validation of who you are and your character. Obviously case study and what you've guys done as an agency, but also the type of person that you want in your corner and speaking your name on your behalf. So luckily we've built some good relationships around there to where we can become validated from a character standpoint, which is so important.
Very cool. Talk about that transition. So, what was that transition like from being a player to then working on the agency side of that? Are you a certified NFL agent, or are you just more in the?
So I'm not a certified NFL agent. I just have a network, and given
Right.
where the business has
Yeah.
NIL early entry and building a relationship and things
Got
like that. And plus, like I look at myself as like that internal accountability partner. So everything that we pitch along the way, I want to make sure it comes to fruition, right? And we keep those promises, and where can we deliver here, and there, and we serve in three primarily talents of broadcast and media, NFL players, and coaches, right? Those are like the three areas that we work in. Obviously NIL as well. Everyone's got to be involved in NIL to some extent nowadays. And so we're very involved in that too. So for me, it was an interesting transition, but again, with a unique perspective of having gone through it as a player, in all aspects, right? It allowed me to kind of make it in a smooth way. I never thought I would be on the representation side of it. I just kind of built up things throughout my career that can make me successful in this business. Even the simple things, just delivering and being trustworthy and proper communication and things along that nature. And then I think just my relationship with Pat, it kind of led me down this road to where we started, thinking about an idea of us working together and what that would look like. And it just couldn't be a better fit, not only just on our relationship, but just in alignment of things that we care about, family, getting to know other families and the perspectives and of people that we get to connect with. It really is such a blessing to come into these people's lives and build relationships. And again, I just appreciate that part of the business. So that's what kind of led me down this path.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Talk a bit about, because NIL is within this space is confusing for a lot of people. Talk about what, like, how what you guys do from an NIL side of it, and how you kind of deal with that part of it.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of times with NIL, obviously people utilize the portal to better their circumstance, whatever that might be. So when we evaluate that situation from a player standpoint in our relationship with a player, we don't. We try to, we're hesitant with just pushing people just to the portal, just to blindly collect payment and, and have them just to make it an additional, 10, 20K, depending on the situation. A lot of times it might be just better for them to stay where they're at and develop and where they're at, because there's always an expression too. You don't want to step over dollars to pick up pennies, right? So if you're at a place that can get you, better ready for the NFL or whatever professional sport that you might be in, well, maybe it's better for you to stay there, even if you're taking a little bit of a pay cut for whatever reason. Like there's a bigger things that should lead to that decision outside of just money. Now, I'm not saying, money, you want fair market value, like I completely get it because we get it from the NFL standpoint, but there's also just a lot of things that should play into that decision. So we just kind of come in and help them evaluate that decision and then be good partners with the university and not try to come in and, demand all this money and burn bridges, because that's not the way to do it either. You just always want to be a good partner and representing your client in the right way, but also just trying to create wins across the board. But no,
I think that, go ahead. Yeah, finish. Go ahead.
No, because I was just going to say too, and then there's a lot of things just from a branding standpoint and how they utilize that platform, right? Like, what are ways that, hopefully you can play in the NFL one day, but what kind of entry point in the NFL do you want? A community guy, being a team guy. How are you utilizing NIL? Are you giving back to your community, serving others that, served you along the way? Like, there's a lot of variety in how you can utilize that platform. So we kind of come in and kind of help them, go through that and identify ways so we can utilize, and build their, brand, whatever that might be.
I think that's huge too, right? Because now with this being like so, kind of new, a lot of those like thought process along the way of building a brand and, what direction would you like to take your brand in? I don't think that's anything that any of these guys think about when they hear NIL. They just think it's, like you said, dollars right up front, right? Rather than look at the term play. And I love what you said about creating relationships, not just for your player, right? But creating a relationship with the university you're going to be working with as well, right? Like you said, you don't want to go in there and, hey, we're demanding this and we're doing that. Like, now you're going to be looked at along the board as that type of agency or those types of guys where that could burn bridges for you in the future. And for something that's only going to get bigger, right? I think that's the angle that you have to approach it in, is build those relationships and kind of move forward. I just think it's so interesting that guys don't think about it. They think about their brand as whatever their Instagram page is, whatever their X page is, like all those kinds of things. And we talk about it with recruiting, like those things all matter. Like, coaches are looking at those things, right? And now you can even look at it this way, like not just for the recruiting purpose, but now for like making money purposes. Like, it all plays into it.
Absolutely. And how you represent yourself along the way. I mean, that's going to come back to you in a certain point, when they sit down with you and hopefully you're invited out to the combine and you're having all these, these conversations, and they're all, looking back in your history and throughout your career. And they notice, you're kind of just jumping from school to school, no loyalty, you don't even have any relationships throughout your whole entire college career. Like, these are things that are going to become red flags. So anyway, we can come in and just give our unique perspectives. And again, we have a guy within our agency that worked at a front office for 7 years with the Jets. You know what I mean? So like, he understands like being on that side of the table too, and what they get ready to ask the player. So we get to kind of just introduce these philosophies and these ideas to them early on in their career, to hopefully they can develop that perspective, just be educated in how they can move. And again, always just putting their best foot forward and not have any regret with what they did throughout their college career. And when it comes to, like you said, having these conversations with the colleges and just being honest and upfront with them, it's just respect for the industry, having done, dealing with this at a higher level. Now the NIL, it just introduces a variety entry point for people trying to break into the business with not much background in it. You know what I mean? So like, I could see why colleges are rubbed the wrong way by a lot of the guys they deal with, because they're just,
those guys are so raw, right? Like there
might be a lack of professionalism,
right?
So.
Even like the etiquette that goes between agents and like, agencies and school, like this is so new, and so many of these guys think they can just, hey, I'm, the informality, maybe, right? That's totally not the right way to say it, but just like the lack of kind of certified, like actual people that are dealing with a lot of these athletes in terms of like they're handling this part of it, like the professionalism. I mean, this is like their uncle, dude, who like read like whatever and is like, oh, I can talk to him about NIL. Like, I mean, this is not anything formalized like what it is, where you have to be a certified whatever when it comes to the NFL and all those things. Like, there's no criteria or groundwork of like line here where a lot of these guys are working with, dude. Like it's a very interesting Wild West type of world.
It's a scary world, which is why now, like nowadays in colleges and even in high school now too, like there's some, high school
well, Texas just passed it. Texas just passed that if you're 17 or older now, Dave, NIL's coming. And my buddy down in Florida has talked about it. Like, he's like, man, this is going to be interesting down here. If somebody if it really starts down, it's wild. Because, you're talking some players that, this is the Arch Manning worlds of it. But take it down to like high school now. And I know, like, for him, like he has a quarterback who's Rajah Bell's son. Right. So he's already verbal to Texas and he's going to be a seat, and like, it's already there. Like, he's buying his team's stuff already. And it's like, absolutely. Okay, here we go. Like, it's coming.
It's exciting, but there's definitely a responsibility that comes with it. You know what I mean? As far as just the education and you pour into the kids and things to identify, obviously those decisions that I mentioned earlier, what could lead you down the portal and why are you actually moving, and making sure you list them out appropriately. And it's just not, and money's just not the only leader in that decision. Again, just proper educating the guys, I think will help mitigate a lot of risk surrounding all of the excitement.
Do you work with the collectives, the head coach on the high school side with NIL? Well, what do you guys? How do you guys approach that? Or now, I guess, with revenue sharing, the university and athletic department are going to be involved in this in some capacity as well. How do you guys approach that part of it?
So a lot of it now, like in just a movement and how things have changed from an infrastructure standpoint for college athletics, they have, personnel people, like almost like, just front offices like you would in the NFL, evaluating talent, putting price up against that talent and making sure you manage a budget appropriately, because that could set you forward or set you back if you don't do it the right way, with some of the risk involved in that. So now they have just people from a staff standpoint, like GMs and personnel people to connect with and have those conversations.
Interesting. Okay. So it goes through that department. And then, so you guys, present what you think, the player's worth, and then they say, hey, they have this much available or this available for that player. And then, do you see that it's, the top, like, few percentage points of players that are even, getting levels of NIL? Is it trickling down to, all the players on the roster? I mean, profit sharing, it's going to be everybody on the roster is getting some, but I guess you guys may not be involved in some. The NIL that you guys are more involved in is not the profit sharing side. It's more this guy's an elite guy. We need to get him an extra $100K or $200K on top of what the profit sharing is.
Yeah, so there's definitely a range there as far as position, need, where they're headed, what that roster looks like as well. So there's a lot that comes into that range of, what's going to get them paid in a certain way. So with that said, like, it could vary, depending on, and a lot of times too. And that's why, just to go back to the professionalism of entering it, when you're approaching another team, you want to understand like what their roster is, what their offense looks like. Would our guy even be a good fit in what they're doing?
Right.
Like, so like my thing is I try not to waste anybody's time, whether it's the player's time or whether it's the school's time, like only trying to have real and proper conversations that could possibly go somewhere to where it's going to be a value on both ends. And I have peace of mind knowing that. So a lot of that just comes into play. So that's just research, background, understanding where the player is specifically in their career, understanding the needs and wants of the university, and is it a reasonable market value with, the request from a money standpoint. Like all that just kind of comes into play throughout that process.
Do you set the stage with like your players and say, hey, like we think, this is what you can get here? Because you talked about how like sometimes it's not worthwhile.
Yeah.
And a little bit more here versus going over there. Like, how do you kind of have that conversation? Because today, especially if you're getting an elite, obviously the elite players are probably going to be the most profitable. if when you get an elite player, they all have a value in their own heads or their family's heads as to what they think they're worth, and then you know, then you have to have that conversation. Very similar to when the NFL, right? Especially Pat has a lot of guys that are on, like on the borderline, right?
For
like
sure.
late round,
Yeah.
in the past. So right. So you have to set that stage with those guys, because sometimes guys think that they're, I don't know, a third rounder when they're really a sixth or seventh rounder, possible PFA. So how do you kind of go through that process and set those stage? Because that's difficult, right? Everyone's always like, oh, that's an easy process. Well, first round, you kind of have or the highest of the highest level. You kind of know, okay, these guys are going to have, you don't want to overshoot your value, but you know that there's a certain value. How do you guys go through that process and valuation? Because that's tough.
Very tough. And honestly, that's a really good question too, because in our business, a lot of times in the recruiting standpoint, right, whether it's in college and navigating the portal, or obviously recruiting them out of college, right, and getting ready to enter the NFL, you want to set the relationship and set the bar at just being honest, right? Like I could sit there and, just tap into a kid or family's ego and be like, it's just because I want the kid, right? So I'll just say anything and being like, let's just say, and I'm just using any random example, I'm going after like a linebacker at Notre Dame, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, we have you as a first or second rounder, where in reality, the kid is a fifth or sixth rounder. Right. And we all have these relationships to properly evaluate, where they're at. We're tapping scouts of all different types of departments all across the NFL. We know exactly, or have a pretty much fair assessment of where they can go entering the pre-draft process. Now, as we all know, when you enter the draft process, the pre-draft process, a lot can happen. You can move up and down, right? So we have an idea of where they're at. But I'd rather just educate, like just a tremendous amount of education, right? Because to me, that's always what's going to empower a kid and their family to make the right decision for themselves, right? And a lot of times, maybe it might not land me the kid, but at least I have peace of mind at night, like knowing I did the right thing by him and how they feel about entering through that entire journey. But a lot of times, like, you just want to be honest, and hopefully you're talking to a kid and their family who just really appreciate the honesty, because the honesty is so important. Like, even given, like, no matter where they're at, let's say if we're talking to them and they're a junior and they have another year to kind of work on specific things that can up level them, right, and get them where they want to go. Well, wouldn't you want to know what those things are, rather than just telling you how great you are and things like, I know personally I would want to, like, if I got released from a team, I would want to know, well, what's the feedback? What can I do to be better? So why, right? So that's what we want to provide along the way, and just being very honest. And obviously excited about the process. You don't want to be like, pessimistic and this and that, because there's a lot of great things that they do well too, which is why they're in the position they're in and why we're recruiting them in the first place. But the main thing is just being honest. And is it hard at times? Of course it is. But again, I always had honesty throughout my process. I know the two other partners firmly believe in that. And so do I. It's just a proper way to set the relationship, because there's nothing worse. Imagine the entire way I'm telling a kid, yeah, you're a first or second round, then eventually draft is going to come, so, right. And if they go 6 or 7, or even priority free agent, which is, sometimes a crazy scenario, well, then what a terrible way to begin that relationship. Would never want to start it that way, So.
Absolutely. That is a very difficult thing. Like Mike Burton's a good example of a guy that
great example.
Like, who went higher than probably they probably projected originally, right? And I'm going like the 5th round, still playing, I believe, on the Broncos.
Right? He's in year 11. It's
he's been around forever now.
Mike is that guy. Mike is that guy, because I know you guys would appreciate this. Like, his process and how diligent he is in every part of his process and his life is what ultimately led and continues to lead to his success.
Longevity. That's why he's there that long. And look, from a direct perspective, year 1 of coaching for me, 2009, I lose to Mike's team in the state finals, him as a player. That just gives you the entire spin. And you knew then, like, just his entire, like, I'm going to go to Rutgers, I'm going to walk on, and I'll leave as the team captain. right? Like,
it's crazy. It's crazy. He's a special guy, and you see on his success on the field is a lot to how he lives his life off the field as well, and just the way he treats people. Because Mike's in obviously a difficult position in the NFL, like a traditional fullback. So that's already a rare breed, and obviously surviving the NFL that long is extremely difficult to do as well.
Exactly.
But just Mike, the way he treats others, like he's such a value add. Not only what he does in the play as a player on the field and special teams, and as a fullback, locker room guy. Like he's the type of guy in that running back room. He's going to educate all the running backs in what they should do based on his experience, things that he's seen throughout his career, and he's blocked for some tremendous tailbacks throughout his career.
Oh shit.
He's that guy, and that's what's really special. Like he's like another coach in that locker room, and also just to handle himself. So when the younger players come in, right, and they have a certain persona, and these guys are making money already in college, so you can imagine like the ego is a little different entry point to an NFL team now. Like when I came in, like none of us had any money or whatever, so you came in with a little more humility, and like nowadays, but at least these guys can come in and they recognize a guy like Mike and how he handles his business, handles his personal life, and how he carries himself and how he treats everybody in the facility. And that's a cool example to look and be like, okay, here's this guy's in year 11 and he's acting that way. How can I act any other way? So it's really special to see.
No doubt about it. And he's a great example of that. So when you guys go through your like draft process, what are some of the things that you're looking for in a player? Because that's always, there's always, as an NFL, as I know, as an NFL agent, like that really is the difference between those players succeeding and failing is, and I'm sure over the years, Pat's made mistakes too. Obviously he's had a lot of successes, but he's, you learn from those mistakes that he makes, and you kind of start to develop the profile that fits for your agency, right? The player that fits with your agency. Talk about what that type of player is and what that looks like.
Absolutely. And that's a great question too. And it's funny. I was just saying this to Pat yesterday. Like I'm so lucky that I get to learn like through his journey as an agent, and think like you just mentioned, like the things that he's learned along the way. I'm able to learn it at a different point in my career. So right. I'm super blessed to have that. And the same thing with Ari too. Like Ari's seen so much, working on the front office side and then entering the agency world. Like now I get to tap into their perspectives, and it's just an amazing blessing to be sandwiched between those two guys. But yeah, as far as an evaluation from a player standpoint, first and foremost, obviously, can we look at a player and say, can this individual play in the NFL, right? Like that has to be like it has to be one of the leaders, right? Because then there's no business if you really can't say that, right? So you want to be able to say, does this individual have the talent or the ability to play in the NFL, right? So that's obviously the first check mark. And then after that, we want to invest in good people. We want trustworthy people. There's a lot of this process that it's trust, and it's both ways, right? So that you're going to, that we're going to handle our business. We're going to, pursue endeavors for you on and off the field. We're going to vet out people for you on your behalf. We're going to insulate you in a proper way to make sure that you're successful on and off the field, and then in your transition to whatever's next after football. Right. So you're trusting us to do that. Now we have to trust you to handle your business, right? To stay prepared, to go to work. Like if we're sending you away to a training facility out in Florida, are you going to go and handle your business out there and make sure that you're properly getting yourself ready for your pro day and combine? Right. Like, so we're evaluating that in our conversations with the individual and their family members, right? Because it is a family decision. A lot of times, I think about, going through the process, people just, you don't know what you don't know. Right. So that's why, like, I try not to take for granted all the things I know about the business and talk to them like they're on the same level from an education standpoint. Right. I try to go beginner's mentality and break it down from the beginning. And that's just a comfort zone. That's a relationship builder to make them, feel excited and comfortable to have proper and honest conversations. Right. So that's extremely important. But yeah, I would just say, like, evaluating them as their character, their background, the type of player that they're going to be. Because as we were just talking about Mike Burton, right? Think about that, right? So Mike, ability to play in the NFL, right? But a lot of times how you handle yourself in those other areas of preparation off the field, when you go home and when these guys come home from OTAs and then they prepare for training camp, there's no strength coach on right over their shoulder telling them to, get in the weight, go run these 110s on Friday morning. Like, they're not doing that. You have to hold yourself accountable, right? So a lot of times we're making sure like that they have that type of sense of urgency to give themselves that longevity in the NFL, right? So basically character, everything that surrounds them as a person, and their ability to work, and also their ability.
There's no doubt about it. It's a people don't realize how the process is for the agent is. It's as important on their side as it is in the players. So the players a lot of times just think it's all about what their process is. They don't realize that the agent has their process as well. Like, they're vetting you as you're vetting them. Like, that was one of the things that we learned very quickly was that, like, you can't, you're not just taking the guy because of his ability, that's one part of it. I think you brought up a really great point too, because it's an undervalued point. When you send them away to training, are they going to go and get up and do what they're supposed to do? Because as you know, like, you're paying the trainer, but he's not going to chase him. He'll call you as the agent and say, "Hey,
be like, hey, your guy didn't show up today. Like, hey,
your guy is not.
He's lazy.
Getting after it. I just want you to know because you're paying for it." But, but he's not gonna make them, do everything they have to do, like, because they usually have
he ain't pulling up to his apartment.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to chase them, and that's the beginning point for these guys to understand, like, they're like to be a professional, and hopefully, and this is where like college structure like really helps you and prepare you for that one day, for when that day comes, and that's what we're talking about before about NIL and how you're navigating the portal and really what position you. Yes, now money brings a more complex situation to it. I get that, but where are you currently as a player and in the ecosystem that's going to help you become that player you want to be in the NFL one day? So you have to accurately and hopefully they come from structure and accountability to where they get ready to make that transition, and man, they're off and running. Like, it's almost not even that difficult for them. There's just a higher level of player that they're going to compete against. But already they already have that professionalism. There's a way they approach and prepare for the game. They know how to film study. They know how to take care of their bodies, because hopefully they came from a college that kind of taught them that, that showed them that way to do it.
I think that is that. Yeah, I was just going to ask that. Dave, go ahead, Dave. Because I think you're going to ask exactly what I wanted to. Go ahead.
Well, I would just say, how important is when you go through the process, talking to guys that either coach them or that were around them? Because I found that to be a really that's where I really started to learn more. Like, I'm about to take a player, and I'm like, let me just call, the position coach or strength and conditioning coach. And I just remember I've taken some players after that I didn't call, and then after the fact there were some issues, and I see a guy like at the combine, and he's like, oh
yeah, I could have told you that.
I wouldn't have taken him. You should have just called me. You know what I mean? I'm like,
and you're like,
why did I just call him? Because I know him, and if I just called him, I would have found that out. You know what I mean? But like, and it doesn't. And I preface it with, like, it doesn't mean that the kid is not a good kid. It means that they're not mature enough to be a professional.
They're not ready. They're just not there.
They may not be there, right?
Absolutely.
Dave, I think and Kevin, you can probably attest to this too. Like, you mentioned it before. Look, even the adjustment, right? Like, from being a high school kid to now being in college. But when you get to college, you're in such a structure of you're lifting here, your meetings are here, you're being held to a standard and such a ultra uber detailed type of situation, because colleges and coaches at that level understand, hey, like, I'm still getting an 18-year-old kid that my job depends on him doing what we need to do, right? So you're investing in him in terms of a scholarship, that's where that structure comes from. And I literally just heard Gronk was just talking about this on Bustin' with the Boys podcast about how his biggest and craziest thing was when he got drafted, that first year was lockout year. So he had to do first 6 months of being an NFL player was without OTAs. He wasn't at the New England's facilities, and he had to plug in and be a professional without any example of anything of how to do it. And he talked about how that was difficult. You're now talking about guys that are entering and doing those things. You have to be professional, and it's hard for these guys to understand. Like when we're nitpicking, especially as a high school coach, right? Like they think it's like you're picking on me, coach. I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to tell you that every decision you make and every little part of this to just get an opportunity to play in college is you have to take advantage of it. And most people around you aren't going to be like that unless they're pushed to do that. And the guys that do it intrinsically on their own, right? Like, those players, they're the ones that succeed and get to that next level, where they want to be. And then ultimately going from college to now professional is an even different type of jump and even more attention to detail and all of those things. You're not always going to have someone there pushing you, telling you, just like going from mom and dad waking you up every day for class to like, now you're in college and dude, you got to wake yourself up. Like that's a huge transition that I don't think people understand where it all goes.
Absolutely. No, for sure. It's an accountability factor, right? And just to making sure that you're taking care of your business. And a lot of times it's just having the perspective to do it. So hopefully someone throughout your personal journey, like as a coach doing that in high school, like that's great. Like that's, like you want to push that perspective on these kids young and develop. I mean, I coach youth football at the Tom's River Warrior program, right?
Watch Dave does up in Middletown.
Middletown. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get it. Like, and a lot of times, like I was in very hard. It's funny, like watching football, and this is my first time going through youth football.
Kev, buddy, good luck, dude.
My son was 7U last year. He's going to be 8U this year, right? So I coached him last year, right? And but it's funny, like just watching football at that, like major college, all that going on to these kids. But like I'm speaking stuff that I learned, throughout my journey to these kids. Now I get it, they're kids, like whatever, but like just working hard and understanding, okay, now it's practice. Let's put in some good work here for this next hour and 45 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, and just develop, because I really do believe in developing habits at these early stages while their minds are so young, and let that become instinctual as they get older. And then by the time they get to high school, well, now they have a level up of just kind of a way to approach the game, a way to practice, a way to approach the weight room, handling their business in the classroom, and how you treat your teachers and classmates. Like I'm not shy about how I speak to the team that I work with to do that, because I just know, like, I was given that when I was young through my father, and making sure that I was doing everything that I needed to do. And that allowed me to be successful when I went to Rutgers. Like, I'm super appreciative of the habits that I had throughout my youth football experiences in high school. And then when I got to Rutgers, like, I was built for a program like that.
Absolutely. You were built to play for Greg Schiano, right? Like that's really what it is.
Yeah. I was prepared for that. Coming in as a freshman, like I didn't shy away from, even just getting yelled at. You know what I mean? Like, right. It's okay.
Shit, like, you were used to that. Like, that's exactly. Okay. There's a healthy level of that.
Exactly. My father's a retired lieutenant colonel in the state police. So like, I was just part of that. You know what I mean?
I was raised by a cop. Is what it is.
You completely get it. I've learned just to listen to, words, not so much tone and volume sometimes. If anything, I get excited when coach,
100%.
That's a great point. I tell that to all my kids.
It's the message, not the tone. It's the message.
Like if you get confused by the tone, then you're not going to find out what the message is.
Exactly.
You're yelling at me. You're yelling at me. Yep. Come on, you're yelling at me. Why did you raise your like? Listen to what I'm saying, not the volume or the level at which I'm saying.
The volume is telling you how important it is.
Correct.
Exactly.
The faster I'm talking, the more it is.
Some people don't like that though. But I thought it was a really interesting point about NFL versus, and Derek talked a lot about like high school to college. What I thought was really interesting and maybe you could talk a little bit about this in your experience with it as an agent. College to NFL, what I thought was so interesting is about what I had to learn was how you have to vet them, because these are elite athletes. Okay, just because the fact that you're talking to them means they're an elite athlete. Like if you look at someone pulls up their stats are probably going to be really good. They were probably all, at minimum some level of all conference player. They have probably close to the measurables or have the measurables that you need at the NFL level. Usually they need to have the NFL measurables, but there are exceptions to the rule. And those I thought was the interesting thing, is because they were elite athletes already, but there was still a difference between the guys that were ready to be pros. And I'm not even talking about talent. I'm talking about the readiness to be pros. And I thought that was so interesting because they were all elite athletes. And then I was never surprised when a guy made it, because if I look back on his process, he handled each step. Never did I have a guy that made it, like, meaning all my guys were free agent, like that borderline guys. Yep. that had to go through camp, that either got a free agent contract or sometimes were mini camp guys. And those guys that made it to a roster, they all handled things incredibly well the whole entire way. Never got upset if things didn't go through. I mean, everybody gets upset internally. Yes. Yeah. Like they may even say, hey, I didn't get a shot here, but just went right back to work. Like it never affected how they thought about things. And the ones who didn't make it, it would be funny because sometimes, a mom or dad, usually a dad, would call up and be really mad at me. You know what I mean? Like that conversation would be the last conversation I ever had with them in my whole entire life. And I was never shocked that they didn't get there, because I was the whole time along the way, they were being fed information that I might not have been privy to, but they were being fed that they should be this and they should be that. And the guys who made it just kept their hands steady. And a lot of times those guys would last a long time, which I thought was really interesting. To me in the NFL, if you're 4 or 5 years, it's a long time, which I think is a really long time. Some of those guys lasted 7-8 years. Some are still in the league that I represented. I'm not even an agent when they're still in the league, but they all handled things unbelievably well. And it was talk about how you start to figure that out. You know what I mean? I know you have your process, but is there when you're in conversations, you're like, this guy's gonna have a shot.
No doubt. And you're right. There's so much talent in that league. And a lot of times your small margins or inches that are separating one linebacker for the next or one corner from the next, right? So really that off the field stuff and who you are as a person and how you deliver in your life a lot of times, not even just so much surrounding the sport of football, it adds up to you making the team over that individual. That becomes the difference maker, right? After height, weight, and speed and, this and that, everything comes to play. Maybe you guys are playing in a similar way throughout that training camp or whatever. You better believe that the thing that is going to be the separator now is going to be all right, well, how accountable is this guy? Has he showed up late ever? And the difference maker at that point, and there's a lot of times that scenario does pop up. They're going to want to lean into the direction of the guy who's handling his business, right? So I like that you mentioned earlier about talking to the strength coach of a college program.
That's the guy that spends the most time with that guy. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think it's a position coach or it's this, the rules of the NCAA and how much contact time have. Those strength guys are with their guys way more than the freaking guys are, because college, they're out on the road, they're recruiting, they're doing that strength guy. I mean, dude, it's January 13th and it's snowing outside, and guess what? I'm the guy standing at the door with the cut sleeves saying it's time for mat drills. Let's get your ass in here. You're also seeing a level of pushing them to a level of uncomfortable that they're not really used to. I can tell you what happens to this guy when that happens. Or he was here and I've watched him develop into like, those are the conversations I think that really, right? And you can attest to that, I'm sure.
Well, absolutely. Like a strength coach can identify like just who they are in adversity. You know what I mean? In those times, obviously in and out of the weight room, get someone who can benchmark and track their development from their time when they entered and from the time they left, and no one could speak more about that than that guy who was constantly with them around that time. How often were they coming back to work on other different types of skills outside of what was asked of them? Right. And a lot of that will tell you, it'll be a symptom of that individual and how they're going to be and how they're going to carry out their career as a
absolutely.
Right. And there is a direct, correlation there. So that's why, like, I'm big on the strength coach conversation too. Plus I'm a complete meathead. Like, I'm a huge, like, weight room guy. I was always tight with whatever strength coach, wherever I was throughout my career. And
who'd you have? You had Jay Butler, right? For most of your career. Did you have Jay for most of your career?
I had Jay my entire time at Rutgers.
All the way through.
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
I saw him at spring ball, and I'm like, damn, Jay, like, all of a sudden you're back to like being Mr. Lean here. Like, shit. I'm like, all right, okay. Like, but it's good. It was just good to see that guy, back. And like when all those guys, when Greg brought all those guys back, you know what I mean? Like, there's a level of again, back to, he knows what those guys can do for him, right? Even him as a head coach, like, I'm sure he's taking a risk on some guys, but when it comes down to it, and Dave and I talk about this stuff all the time, like, when you can talk to somebody that you fully believe in, and then he now tells you something, because sometimes you just can't get direct eyes on it or whatever it needs to be, like, you're going to hold the people that are going to give you that information to a level and a standard. And when they say, okay, this guy is this, or at least you're going to get the honesty, right? You're not going to get some guy who's just going to tell you because, hey, if I get a guy to Rutgers, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be, I don't give a shit. Like, I am willing to sacrifice my own for the good of what it needs to be, because that's just what it is, right? That's how I was raised. That's how I was coached, right? I was fortunate enough to play for a lot of coaches that held me to a higher standard than what it is. And I knew that if somebody called and asked those questions, I wanted their response to be what I wanted it to be, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
100%.
That head coach has a proven vision, right? And then it's up to the rest of the staff and all the support staff to enforce that culture that's gonna, make that vision happen. So
that vertical alignment, right? Like, I heard Greg talk for the entire. He was the keynote this year at the New Jersey Football Coaches Association clinic, and his entire hour-long, speaking engagement was all about vertical alignment, from the head coach all the way down to the dude that's like, sweeping the floor, right? And you also, like, you respect every one of those. And that's the other thing too, like, the guy that respects everybody across the board. I don't care if you're handing me a water bottle. I don't care if you're fixing my helmet. I don't care if you're my position coach, my professor, right? Like, those are the guys I think that, those are the ones that kind of can track upward in terms of the longevity portion of it. Because anybody can fake it for a little bit. But ultimately, like, even a zebra covered in mud, it still has stripes, bro. Like, those stripes are coming out, like, at some point.
Totally agree. And that's why you see a lot of guys, under Coach Shiano's specific program at Rutgers, a lot of them transition really well into the NFL because of the structure that they have. Well, you prepare like a pro in that program, right? So by the time you make that transition into the NFL, you're like, well, I'm used to all this, So
I mean, look at Bill Belichick. How many times he takes a Rutgers guy, guys are like, like, why? Like, this guy's not even on other people's boards, but you're taking why? Because you trust in what they've done and who they are to be able to fit into your puzzle, right? Like, that's guys don't understand that, man. It's a really hard concept.
Yeah, well, that reputation goes around to the NFL, and I'm sure you see that. So, kind of transitions to the relationship with the teams, and I think it's probably the most important thing that the agents have. So, whether you're an agent that represents 100 guys a year, or you represent a handful of guys a year, what I always found with the NFL was that developing a relationship that what you say your player can do, your player actually can do. And I think that they talk about how I always thought that this is what I always thought the NFL was really good at. Even the lower level guys at this is assessing you as the agent and understanding as to do they believe what you're saying, right? Because I feel like, I'm not on the inside to know, and you're working with a guy that is now, but I was never on the inside to know if that was conversations that they had. But I thought they always they and it helped my players a lot. They felt like they kind of understood where I was coming from and what I was saying. If my guy got in there, he did what we thought he could do, whether he made it or not. So that's one of the things people don't realize is that it's not because there's going to be times guys are going to get cut. It may be a numbers thing. It may be he's not a right fit for the system. There may be another place where you play, but they want to be able to go back to you and say, hey, Kevin, this guy came in. He did everything he was supposed to do. He did a fantastic job. Great. We're going to keep him around. He did everything he was supposed to do, did a fantastic job. He's not the right fit for us, but doesn't mean he can't play somewhere else. But, we have to make cuts for these risks. Talk about that relationship with the teams and how important, how that flows for you guys.
That's another great part about the business. And I'm glad you're bringing that up too, because, just like we keep talking about trust that you have with the player, their families, and how that goes two ways. You want to make sure you're accurately depicting who that individual is to whatever team that you're dealing with, right? Because there's no better way to lose credibility by, saying a player is something that he's really not, right? Just for the pure standpoint. Because not only are you burning that situation, you're burning the next 10 players that you're bringing towards that individual. So
I say it all the time as a high school guy, right? Like if he doesn't look, if that coach asks that question, this is the answer they're getting, because again, I'm not going to cost younger guys or the next guys in line an opportunity to go to this school because what, you want me to lie for you?
And NFL,
do what you're supposed to.
At college, if their player I think is good enough, they'll come back to him. The school, meaning if a guy really, really can run a jump, but coach has lied in the past, they might still come in there. In the NFL, as an agent, it really hurts because everybody can run and jump. Everybody can do everything you want them to do. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry. Continue on that though.
No, it's true though. So just to that point, you want to make sure that they're just given your past history and relationship with that individual that you're working with for that team, that they're giving your guys an honest look at all times, right? And an early look. You know what I mean? So if they're a free agent, you based on your past relationships and how they dealt with you, they're like, man, these guys are awesome. They're always honest. They're great communication. Dude, let's give a chance. Let's give this guy a chance. They said he's this and this. We need this fit. Let's give him a chance. So those relationships, I do think, matter as you navigate that entire journey and the whole journey of a player, no matter where they're at through their career. Because as you know, they could be, a huge free agent one year, and then other years it could look way different, right? So hopefully that you're managing and the players handling their business and how they represent themselves as a locker room guy or whatever, but how we handle ours as well, I think does go a long way in providing opportunity. And also you can apply that too. So I work a lot on the brand and marketing side too of our business. And if we're getting, deals and things like that, right, at levels. And I say the same thing too with dealing with a lot of the brand partners, right? So whatever brand that we're dealing with and that partnership and what that looks like, how can I be a good partner in that? Where can I get the player a tremendous win that's their value and represents them accordingly? But then how can I look out for this brand too and making sure I'm treating them respectfully as well? Not just take, and this is my guy and that's it, and kind of play the role of what everyone thinks an agent should do.
Right.
But more so just being a good partner along the way. And that's
I think it's like the HBO show. Ballers.
Yeah, absolutely. So
just you could have a player that is a little bit of the lifestyle, but but yes, for the most part.
For sure. Yeah. And just building that proper relationship with the brand, because chances are, like, I want to build a relationship with them and making sure like they look out for future players as well. Like if I have an idea here and maybe we work to deal with one individual, but like it was such a great relationship and a positive experience for both sides, let's go back to the well and do something cool again. You know what I mean? So, and it's the same thing, obviously, on the player side and dealing with a lot of the front office people and just to make sure that you're just always honest with them, because you don't want to, again, lose that credibility, because it's going to reflect in a lot of areas of business and you don't want that.
How important for you and for Pat, as well, I'm sure, was the ability to understand when they say to you no, when it means no, and to be able to decipher through like, a maybe, a no, and obviously a yes is obviously what, you're going to follow up immediately, but be able to respect that. Because I felt like there are agents that did not respect when a team said no to them and they kept pushing. And I always thought that was one of the important things, that like if a team was like, hey, no, you respect it, you say thanks, and you move on, and be able to handle rejection as an agent, because most of the time you're getting rejected. Really, that's the truth, right? Because you only put them on one team, so most of the time you're going to get rejected, and you really just need, obviously, a team to come to the table. Obviously, if you have multiple, you're in business. But talk about how important it is to handle rejection and keeping the mind frame to be able to stay focused on what you need to be able to do as an agent.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, you want to be, I call it, professionally persistent, right? So you want to have an idea of like bothering someone and not really knowledgeable, you know what I mean? And just asking to do to where they don't even want to pick up your call or whatever, to really having a firm understanding of the need, what your specific player represents. And Pat and Ari, like, they live in these trenches often, right? So like, and also you also want to stay front of mind too, because like injuries happen every weekend, in that league, during the season, and there's a lot of constant movement. So honestly, it's just being up to date on all the movement and all the transactions, and where you could see people, where teams are headed and who's getting hurt, and just kind of following that, and being professional about it. Right. It's, I think what makes it worse is a lot of times people just don't have the latest information, and they're not even taking anything account, and they might be getting lazy in their process, and they're just calling, really not even knowing their situation or whatever. And then the worst thing you do is have the scout have to go out of their way to explain to you now, when really they don't have that. They don't have to really do that, Right. So a lot of times it's just being educated on what's going on, and being up to date on all the movement, and again, being professionally persistent.
Really cool. Very cool. Derek, you got any more questions?
Nope. I never needed an agent.
You might need one day, maybe media.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, for sure. You never know.
Listen, we keep growing this thing, Dave, and who knows? I mean, shit. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to be something that you're going to have to, like, that's going to be a piece of branch off. Like, you're going to have influencers that are going to be on a level of like, I need an agent. Like, I can't, or I just don't want to figure this piece of it out. I think that's like an entire branch of a freaking whatever that could become something, you know what I mean? Like, that's that entertainment / who the hell knows, dude? Like, at this point,
players become influencers. Like, it's crazy. I mean, one of the guys
we're living in a lot of worlds. Like, that's what I was like, that's how I look at it.
Two guys that played for my 7-on-7 club when I was in North Jersey. Remember you coached with me? It was the year before, that Warrior Kings team we had.
Yes.
Yeah, the year before I got there, you had a bunch of dudes that were
influencers in football: Hunter Reynolds and Jelani Green, and they played on our team. They're good players. They played one played at Utah State, the other one played. Where did Jelani play at? New Haven, maybe, I think. But they were good players. But that team had a lot of guys that end up going and playing in Division I. But those guys are like huge influencers now. It's crazy. And they do all this football stuff, and they go around, and they it's wild how you could be like a really good football player, not quite get to the NFL, but then you parlay it the right way.
Still
then
make it. You
Totally.
still make it in a way.
those guys are
Just
making
maybe not the way you
insane
thought.
money. They're making insane money.
I totally agree with that mindset. A lot of time, and that's what we always go back to saying, like, you know, an agency, like we serve in the areas of contract, obviously, you know, branding, marketing, you know, which is keeping money in your pocket, right? With brand deals that you align with, they might not be paying you, but you put money out for those brands. So like now, if you could save you money or putting money in your pocket, doing a deal for money, and then what we call legacy, which is a mix of philanthropy / entrepreneurship, right? Those are the 4 areas that we serve in our business, right? Like we don't want to be those guys that, you know, pop up around free agency and then disappear again once the deal's done, right? And you never see us again. Like we want to be a guy who earns that 3% or whatever that percent is throughout your entire career, right? And go to work for you daily, right? So, and that's something I've learned because that was what was done for me at a certain level. And there's all different levels to that, but still every player deserves that type of attention and service, right? So just along the lines of everything we're talking about as far as utilizing that platform, right, as a springboard, not a finish line, right? So like football, when football is over one day for you, it shouldn't be like, oh man, what am I going to do next? It should actually, as long as you have peace of mind in your own journey, and me, I got like peace of mind for my 4-year career. I look back at it, I saw this talent. I'm like, I can't believe I lasted 4 years in that league. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's some guys who can only play 1, but they feel good about it because they put the work in, and it just that's where things laid out, and that's okay, right? And there's other guys who put the work in, and you got Devin and Jason McCourty, who are clients of ours, like 13-year careers, those guys, right? And along the way, treated people tremendously well, whoever they came across with, and dealing with things, all things media throughout their careers, and always taking an interview.
They're in media now, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah. So we
look at them. Yeah, they're calling games and shit. Some of them are They're on whatever shows and all that stuff.
Games on CBS. He's on ESPN. Devin's on Football Night in America on NBC.
Yeah, which is Football Night in America. Like that's the only show in town at that time. Like, and you're the face, and you're a face of it. Like
it's insane, but a lot of it is because of how they maximize their time as players, right? And the way they treated people in the media, the way they gave interviews and gave honest responses, and didn't act a certain way towards them, right? That's a professionalism that they brought. So when that time came and they made that transition, well, wow. I mean, you have all these, you know, what amazing careers they had, right? But now you have an exciting new phase of your life that you can attack because you put in the work along the way while still, you know, keeping the main thing. But if anything on our behalf that we can do to help facilitate different opportunities to where that time comes, that you're teed up in a certain way, it's a nice win all around.
No, there's no doubt about it. You know, you're with a great group, and
appreciate
that. I didn't know that you were with Pat Capra before you came on, so I didn't do my research there. So
no, good. I appreciate you guys having me on. This is a great conversation.
He's a great agent. He was always I remember having conversations. I remember he was with he's had a couple of different names under his stuff and been with some other people in the past. And he's always been really, really good. He was always really, nice to me when I was an agent. I was first coming in and stuff. So, you guys have great success, and
appreciate that.
It's really cool to see all the guys over all those years. That's what it becomes in agency. It becomes an accumulation of all. Each year you nail a guy that makes it. And the other guy gets success. It just builds on itself, and it's really cool. And I remember Pat had a great relationship with the NFL, the union.
Yeah.
People don't realize how important that is as an agent. I remember agents would gripe, and I'd be like, dude, like all you got to do is just talk to those guys. They're good guys. They just want to know who you are, know that you're doing the right thing, and everything works out, really well from that standpoint.
Totally.
That's the one thing about agency. Like guys like Pat are very revered, well respected. And then there are other guys that the union would rather not be agents after a couple of years as they see them.
Yeah.
So
it makes the business look bad in a certain way, right?
Right.
Absolutely. It gives a bad reputation. Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Especially with NIL because now you're seeing them earlier, and you might carry them. I mean, that's a whole. I mean, we could probably do a podcast just on, I don't know how, there must be churn there too. That's crazy. I mean, if there's churn at the NFL level, there must be churn on NIL in college, like crazy. Maybe you could give us a lesson on how you hang on to a guy, collect payment without the union structure to be able to make sure you're able to collect that. That must be a whole different ball of wax. I can't even imagine, but I'm sure you guys do it really well. So, but it's been great having you on, Kevin. I really appreciate you coming on. We'll have to have you come on again and talk some more.
Totally.
You're right down the shore. I mean, your son's 2 years younger. Mine's going to be 10U this year.
Okay.
So he'll be on 10U this year. So.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. That's really cool. Nah, you sports.
Dave's in it, man.
Yeah.
I'm what we call an old dad. So I'm 51. So I'm an old. I got a late start in the whole process. So
yeah, I love it.
I have a very unique perspective, having coached in high school for 20 years. All of a sudden, I was in youth. I was like, "Whoa!" I'm sure you had kind of that when you first walked in there. You'd be like,
"Oh my god, yeah!" And I like the kids are like touching each other. I'm like, I'm not even coaching football.
You're like, buddy.
I'm thinking,
no, you're babysitting.
Teach them like come to balance on approaching a tackle. Tackling. Like all these tackling circuits, stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like, technical stuff. And I'm like, guys, stop touching each other.
They do get better fast, though.
When I'm talking, stop talking.
Yeah, that's right. No, the talking, oh my God.
You're like, put the cone down, dude. Put the cone down.
8 year, I remember that. I was like, why?
But it really is so much fun, though. Like,
it is fun.
And you get it. Like, I have so much fun, like, getting to know these kids, watching the development is at these stages is really cool.
Develop fast.
They do. Really fast. They do.
And they're funny because they're like, you go to team and then, it's all of a sudden it's dark and I'll have a kid that's scared of the dark. So I just tell them, you just sit over here, relax. Well, let me know if you want to come back in. And, you go through all of those things, but you know what? They're like the kids really they really respect you. You know what I mean? They like,
absolutely.
And then it's you guys, I guess at 8U that's still non-competitive AYF, right? I think.
Yeah, it gets competitive at 9.
9, yeah. Last year we went competitive. It used to be you could choose to be competitive at 9 and 10. You could choose to be competitive or not. Now they made it. I don't know why they did it, but I mean we did it and it was fine last year when we were 9U, but Middletown's like Top River. It's a big town, so you're going to have a lot of kids that could play. But they made it competitive, so we went from the development to competitive. But it was pretty smooth. The kids did a good job.
Yeah,
it's fun. It's a ton of fun. And as you see them, like this will be my 3rd year doing it. Like from where they were at 8, like I have kids that like literally would sit on the ground, and now they're good players.
Yeah. So, it's cool. And that's the thing, like that's the main goal, right? Like, did they develop and learn, the game of football, right? And then also, are you teaching them other skills along the way that that can make them just a better individual in general, right? And then are they coming back for next year? Like my thing, like my goal with
retention,
7U, like I was like, I hope all these kids come. But the success will be these kids had such a great experience that they all come back for 8U. You know what I mean? Like that's what I want to see. I want to see engagement. I want to watch these kids in high school one day. Like to me, that's what it's all about. And
that is the
kid. Gave that to me.
Coach, should I go to Toms River North or should I go to Donovan? Coach, like what should I do? Like get ready for that one, buddy. Like, listen, you think it's gonna happen before 10? They already talked about it.
Conversation.
That's a battle.
When I get to 10, I'll tell you, already
it's a battle right now. And it's funny where I live right between the two of them. So, like, I can walk to North High School. That's how close I live to Toms River North. And Donovan Catholic, obviously, is right.
Yeah, right across. Literally.
It's like a mile away. So I could be there, too. So it's great. I live super close to those two.
There you go, buddy. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Nah, but I really appreciate you guys, man. I appreciate all the work that you guys do. And, like, the educational stuff, it's really so important for kids and families to have a fair idea of what's going on and how to navigate this confusing landscape at times. So really appreciate you guys for having me on. Really enjoyed this conversation.
No doubt,
awesome,
Kevin.
Thanks, buddy.
A day and weekend, okay?
Yeah,
thanks,
absolutely.
We'll take care. We'll talk soon.
All right. That was great. That was really, really great.
So funny. A lot of stuff.
How funny is that? I love our chats. Sometimes it's relevant, and then sometimes it's like I get you 100,000 subscribers in 10 days.
I just think it's funny. Like he's in a really good, like cool, like perspective in terms of like where he's at, like because he does have that player perspective,
yeah,
right? But and then like in terms of like college to the pros, like, and like you said, he went through a lot of different types of things in his 4 years as a pro, so that he can bring that perspective. But you can tell that like he's still plugged into that college world too, that can kind of have these conversations. He's young enough where like guys aren't going to look at him a certain way and be like, you don't get this type thing because you're not you know what I mean? Like, I think that gap is important too, to have those people. And just like a total, something that like that agent stuff is going to be a part of college football now. So that's happening earlier and earlier with younger and younger people in terms of, who's going to negotiate my deal. Like eventually it's not going to be, you or your mom or dad. Like that stuff's going to go through somebody else because like somebody's going to do it. They're going to get way more money than the other people. And then it's just, that's how it's going to work. Right. Plus you can see it already becoming more of a business type structure. So I think that's going to be I think it's only going to expand, right? There's going to be more of him dealing with that specifically. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's going to be more opportunities. And I think as you get in a world where jobs in like things are going to get more AI related, I think creative talent of what you bring to the table that is real, like that people can get real information from, is going to become more and more valuable. So that this skill set is a skill set I can't get anywhere else. That's valuable because you can probably about 5 years, you're probably going to be able to just talk to your phone or your computer, and he'll do all your taxes right there as you're just having a conversation. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be. The old days of needing an accountant, like you're not even going to need it because he's going to have all the information, all the laws, all the stuff already baked in. And you're just going to be like, hey, and he's going to be like, Derek, what was your W-2 and so and so? And it was this. What was my, what did you make outside? Oh, it was this. How much did you have in expenses? It was this. How much did you have? And you're going to go through that conversation in 20 minutes. He's going to be like, all right, your tax return is X. This is what you have for state taxes. Do you want me to file it right now? Yeah. Okay. Done. Right. It'll be like that, literally. And a lot of jobs are going to go that way. So talent and skill sets that are, ironically, sports, it's hard to replace. I mean, I think that's why it's so popular on TV. It's hard to replace live sports with something that is not – that is manufactured, meaning like a TV show or a movie. Like I think because there's so many things that you can get manufactured anywhere you want and be entertained.
Correct.
Sports is really interesting to people because it's as real as it's going to come. I'm not saying that there aren't some things that are maybe fixed here and there. Or I don't know if they're fixed, but you know what I mean? Like slanted. That's a better word, slanted. But, but it's as real as it's going to get. Whereas like, that's probably why movies are not as popular as they used to be and live sports are, because people crave the realness more. That's just like why reality TV hit too. As things become more manufactured, people are creating really enjoy, and that's probably why they like podcasts. It's probably why, a lot of those kind of things. So,
anything where there's no script, right? Like it's just like you, and that whole, I don't know what's going to happen next type of feeling, right? Like where, you watch enough movies, you kind of, all right, well, this is probably what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, all right, this is going to go. Reality TV of like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, or like a live sporting event where this could happen. Like that stuff, I think, is the appeal for people.
Yeah, I mean, it's the appeal for me. I think that's, you can almost argue that even the craziness in like so many people playing sports, that might be the joy that not just kids, but parents get out of it. It's like, this is real. This is not like my job or I got to go do this and this and this. Like when I come to this sports team, this is a real interaction I'm having with this team and these kids and other parents. And this is real, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And it's real. And it kind of almost like it's giving them like a dopamine. It's actually giving everybody dopamine hits now because
it's giving everybody a high. Everybody's getting a high.
Everybody's getting a high because they're not, even if they lose, they're getting the high. Everyone's getting the highs because they don't get it as much anymore in the way that maybe we did as kids. And we did that even as in our, teenagers and stuff where there was less phone, I mean, I didn't even have, there wasn't even phones when I was a kid, but like there was less of that. And I think that's a big deal, and that's probably why people get so excited because literally I've heard guys say to me, what else do I have? I said, I never thought about it that way. I find that a little bit sad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I'm not in my own mind. I don't say that to them, but I'm thinking in my own mind, that's a little bit sad. But then you almost think maybe they don't. I know it sounds crazy, but maybe
all they got.
This is all they got. But anyway, that was really really good conversation. Good guess. I'm actually glad that I didn't do even more research, like deep, like dive into where he worked more. Because then I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize it was Pat Capra. So he's very good agent, and he has a specific way he does things, which has worked really well for him over the years. So really cool stuff. And I happen to have talked to him quite a bit when I was an agent. A couple times I almost joined. Like when I lost my partner, he decided to leave the agent business. I think I'm pretty sure I went in and met with him, and I almost, just said, "Hey, I'll just come join you guys." But then I think I decided that was, I wasn't going to do it anymore. But yeah, and very very interesting stuff. Really great stuff. Tomorrow we have Coach on, right?
Yes, Coach, head coach from Fairleigh Dickinson University, Coach Van Kuren will be on.
Did they already have their camp, or is it this weekend?
They had their mega camp Tuesday. They had mega camp. I had a couple players that were there. I've talked to numerous guys that were there. They had I think it was close to 500 kids there. I mean, crazy. Big numbers. So
cool. Very cool. All right. Well, excited to talk to him. And so far, good week. Nice.
Awesome.
And we'll see you guys tomorrow.